Mr. Bagley, members of the board, we do have several items for board discussion this evening. Our first item is in regard to some board policies. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Crapo. I have to give him a minute to get up there.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
You're welcome.
Mr. Bagley, members of the board, I am here to discuss 5 pieces of policy. These were part of the policy updates from OSBA that were sent out. The 5 pieces of policy, number 1 is JED, student absences and excuses. Excuses. The update to this policy includes allowing high school students to be absent from school to attend a private driver training course. High school students can now be excused from attendance for no more than 2 hours per day, up to a maximum of 8 hours. Also, the update is to remove the distinction between medically and non-medically excused absences because all the absences now count towards chronic absenteeism. This language is coming from the budget bill passed earlier this summer. Policy JEDA, the truancy piece. This has a pretty major update within there, but again, it's coming from the bill. Updated to reflect changes in district obligations for attendance, interventions, and truancy. Most notably, the law requires that we work in consultation with the county juvenile court to establish a tiered system that provides more intensive interventions and supports for students with greater numbers of absences, and only file a complaint with the court if the student is not making satisfactory progress. Policy IKE, which is the promotion and retention of students. It's updated per law to remove the requirement that a school prohibit promotion of a student that is truant more than 10% of the required attendance in that school year. Policy JEDC, there was only one minor change. It was simply an ORC change. And then finally, policy JEFB, release time for religious instruction, updated to reflect the change in law for how often a student must be excused for religious instruction. These are up for discussion today, and due to the timeliness of the action, which they come into effect September 30th, 16 days ago, we're also going to be on the agenda for action. Do you have any questions with those 5 pieces of policy?
No questions. Just thank you, as always, the whole admin team for sending those out prematurely so we can have a chance to look at them and read through them. So appreciate that.
I have a bit of like a technical question about the truancy policy. So now it requires us to work in consultation with the juvenile court. So do they have a dedicated person there that we go to? Like, do we go to them with every case? Or
So they do have a
do we just
dedicated,
have a general policy with them?
yeah, they do have a dedicated team towards this for the truancy piece. Each district has truancy officers within the district. What the previous policy and law stated, there were a lot of rules. At this, if a student missed this many times, this many hours, this many days, this is what happened, and then that plan was in place for this many days, and then you had to revisit for this many days. So there were a lot of steps. And then if a student got better with the attendance and then fell off the boat again, we would have to start all the way back at step 1. This eliminated all those steps and simply gave the district a little bit more leeway about when they have to send a family to court. For example, if we know a family is going out of the country for a family holiday, whatever, for a month. Let's say they're going to Mexico for a month. Before, we may have to take them to truancy court, which the truancy court would simply throw it out because the reason was very easily defined as they had a family holiday in the country. Now we're able to make that decision ourselves. Because it's so fluid and liquid in that they're having all the county schools meet and come up with a very similar plan of when you send a kid to court and when you, or a family, I'm sorry, when you send a family to court and when you don't, so that we're kind of all on the same page. Where in the past, it was very strict and very outlined of how this flowed. Now we could get a little more leniency, but they would like us to be kind of similar.
Okay, thank you.
And it is an important topic, right? There was an article not long ago in the paper talking about chronic absenteeism. We did not make that list of local schools with those issues, but it's certainly an issue statewide and nationally, right? So it's something that has to be addressed, has to be stayed on top of.
And chronic is so challenging because
That's
it could
right.
be for medically excused absence. We as a district would get dinged for a student that cannot be attending school. So it's
And if I could just comment, I wish Dr. Franchini was still here. And Mandy, I couldn't help, I'm like, oh, I should probably mention this. So the district, we did lose some points because of chronic absenteeism on this most recent report card. And just to look kind of behind the curtain at some of the things, people will never really know everything that happens. There's just too much that our staff do. But one example of that, today Mandy and Kim Hauer and I met with Dr. Franchini to talk about their most recent report card, which we are doing with all of our principals, all of our administrative teams in our buildings. And what she has done, she has these massive spreadsheets on her wall in there with potential students who are, going to qualify for chronic absenteeism, with documentation of communications to parents, emails, voicemails, whether or not their attendance has improved. So she is doing that behind the scenes because we are now, as school buildings and as a district, being judged for chronic absenteeism. In addition to that, not only communication and tracking, but I know that several of our principals are having conversations inside of their buildings, maybe with their building leadership team or maybe a PBIS committee, talking about how can they incentivize students who have high attendance rates, right? So again, just a little look behind the curtain at what is going on behind the scenes with a topic like that. And I know Mandy will probably touch on that topic, or one member of her team at I believe it's the November 6th board meeting, which will be our next one. So I don't want to steal all your thunder either, Mandy. But again, we're here at Creekside. We were just here today, and most people have no idea that that's what a building principal is doing behind the scenes. Yeah. So.
I don't have anything else.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item for board discussion is in regard to the agreement that the district has with Bureau's Garage. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Begley, members of the board. The current agreement with Bureau's Garage has expired and is up for renewal. Mr. Clemens and I have been working with them over the past few weeks and plan to have a finalized agreement for board approval at the November 6th meeting. The relationship with Bureau's Garage has been longstanding, and the services received on all levels has been and continues to be excellent. We are fortunate to have a local vendor with the facilities and infrastructure to manage all of our needs. The new agreement will be 3 years with an owner option to extend by 2 more years. This is due to our current 5-year forecast. In addition, the updated agreement includes additional services needed for air conditioning, which all of our new buses that have been ordered and starting to arrive will have, and will continue to provide all services for all motorized road vehicles, trailers, lawnmowers, and any other equipment owned by the district. So this is an all-encompassing agreement for all of the needs of the district. Does anyone have any questions?
I think it's great that we're staying with them. Kenny does an excellent job down there, so
Yeah.
I'm happy that we're staying with them.
Yeah, some things that I don't even know who all knows, but like Kenny, for example, when we have a bus accident of any type, he actually goes to the site immediately as one of the extra levels of customer service that they provide.
100% agree. I mean, how awesome is it that they work on the lawnmowers, the buses, go to the wreck site, the accident site, all encompass everything.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
It's very nice.
Yeah, and you don't always do all that unless you care about where you're working or who you're working for. So that says a lot. So, yeah.
And not to mention I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
No, I just say thank you for bringing it back.
Yeah, not to mention, I know we've discussed this before, like, not only are they great customer service, but their services are wonderful. The fact that they continue to help us make the longevity of our buses longer than they're projected to be because they do such great maintenance to our buses and impress the auditors when they come based off of how well we maintain our buses because of what they do. So thank you so much for continuing to work with that partnership and keeping them working on our school district to keep our students and our machinery working safe.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
And it's more than just sign a contract. I mean, you've got to have good rapport with them. The drivers
Absolutely.
do, the district does, so it's all encompassed.
Yeah, and our maintenance staff as well.
Yeah.
They
yeah.
work hand in hand
Yeah, for sure.
constantly.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next two items are in regard to an IRG proposal and the Ohio Education Policy Institute analysis. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Phillips.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Begley, members of the board, I sent you a document proposal from the Incentive Review Group. And coming into Fairfield, I knew we had some history as a district with abatements and TIFs. And I until I took the job, I didn't realize the complexity of, we have 14 TIF districts here in Fairfield. And, these TIFs can sometimes go on for 30 years. And so if you don't have very defined records, and even if you do, as property values change, TIF dollars change, abatement dollars change, and sometimes very significantly. These dollars can vary a great deal. And so as I was looking into our different TIF districts, working with Nathaniel from the city, who's been a great supporter of our schools and has been very helpful in sending me information. We also have TIFs in the township. I had talked to a couple of my superintendent or treasurer call. I'm no longer superintendent, which I'm glad about.
He misses it. He comes down, I give him a few emails.
But speaking with a few of my treasurer colleagues, they recommended the Incentive Review Group, who is out of actually Bradley Payne's office, who does a lot of work with school finance. And essentially what this group does is they dig up all of your TIFs, your CRAs, they work with the cities, the townships. They know these people already because this is what they specialize in. They're able to do updated and reviewed calculations to determine how much you should be owed, how much maybe that you've been underpaid, which actually happens quite a bit. There's situations where a company, instead of paying their taxes in lieu of taxes, tax increment financing, they may pay the city directly. The city then is supposed to pay you, and this is just one example of how it can work. But the city may not know that payment goes to you, and so you don't get the payment. And like I said, these are we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. And so what they'll do is they'll dig in, they review all the agreements, they recalculate all the payments that you should be owed or are owed. They'll create a report for you. They'll do some reconciling. Like I said, they'll determine the dollars that have come in against what you should have had taken in. And on the other end, there are times that you may be overpaid, and they'll alert you to that as well. But again, this has been strongly recommended. I was actually on a call with one of our financial consultants with Forecast 5 Analytics today, and we were reviewing some of the finances and some of the revenue and expenditures up through the end of September. He said, Jay, I really highly recommend you have somebody review your TIFs. And I said, well, it's funny you say that. I'm bringing that up at the board meeting tonight, and I told him who I was looking at, and that's who he always recommends as well. It is a significant price. It's $35,000. So it's an investment, but every treasurer I've spoken to so far have said that they've recouped at least that much, if not more, from typically much more from doing this process. So it's something that I would recommend that we do. I just wanted to put it in front of all you so that, because it is a pretty high price tag, I wanted to make sure that you all, as a board, were in support of this as well before I move forward with something like this. But I think it could greatly benefit our district. So that's the Incentive Review Group. Any questions, comments on this?
I think it's great if we get somebody that knows all the ins and outs of the dollar figures, and that's all they do. I think it would really benefit our district.
Yeah.
I appreciate, that's one of the benefits of bringing new eyes to a situation is that you're looking at things and as you're digging into things, you're learning more and more. And then one of the great things about you is that you are then seeking experts. You're not just being compliant and just being, oh, that's just the way it is. That you are bringing opportunities like this to be able to make sure that we are getting all the funds that we should be and that we're being stewards. So thank you so much for looking into something like this and bringing it to us.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just would add one last thing. When you have a single entity TIF, if I could call it that, right, where we know at this location, this business, right? But when you have a TIF district, and then the timing of those, very difficult to keep track of.
Very complicated.
Easy, very complicated, right? And then we're counting on others, not you, others to do that accounting for us.
Right.
And so $35 is a price tag that's steep, but I think it merits it.
Yeah.
And we have, in fact, experienced some of this in the past. And so I think it's important to know where we stand in the community and check these tips.
Right.
And if you would, just very quickly, just for anyone watching, just a little background on the TIF, and, there's several other different, they all kind of function the same way.
Yeah, typically what happens, whether it's an abatement or a TIF, it gives developers, it gives business owners an opportunity to develop or launch their business without paying all the taxes directly to the county or the city. It actually, for a TIF, for example, tax increment financing, and what it allows them to do is take that money and redivert that money towards infrastructure improvements, whether it's roads or curbs or stoplights or anything that would improve the infrastructure. They can use that money to do that. So the money actually doesn't go to the county. The money goes in lieu of taxes. They are being able to, the city, and a lot of times they have to have an agreement with the school district. Oftentimes businesses will want 100% abatement. And we actually have an agreement with the city that we don't ever do that. But that's what it does. It allows development to happen, and it allows both real estate, residential developments, when we're talking about CRAs, or business development. So that's typically how a school ends up getting involved with that. And oftentimes it helps the schools, right? Because, it brings more people, it brings more jobs, all of those things.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. My next item for discussion is just a quick synopsis of the Ohio Education Policy Institute report that came out. If you recall, the governor, when he made several line item vetoes with the biennium budget, he put together a group to put together property tax reform. And then there was another group, the Ohio Education Policy Institute, that analyzed this as well. And I have just a quick one-page summary. The report itself was 18 pages, but I kind of boiled it down into really what has been the key factors in driving our current property tax. They call it crisis. Property taxes are high. We've talked about that at prior board meetings. Talked about that at some other financial meetings. I talked about it today at the school community liaison meeting we had. Property taxes are high for everybody. And school districts get the knock on that a lot of times because we get a big part of those property taxes to help fund our schools. So the study itself identified 4 key factors that's been driving this crisis. One, home values skyrocketing. They're up nearly 46% since 2020. Pushing tax bills well beyond wage growth. Slow wage growth. Ohio's per capita income is just 88% of the national average right now. State funding shifts. 2 decades of tax cuts and policy changes have shifted more of the load onto local taxpayers, who now pay 67.5% of all school property taxes. This is up from 46% in 1991. And some of it has to do with some of the things I just talked about with TIFs and CRAs and some commercial abatements. And then House Bill 920 and levy fatigue. As a result of increased valuations, nearly 400 districts in the state of Ohio are now on the 20 mil floor, where reappraisals automatically raise taxes. Ohio has more school levy campaigns than any other state, with nearly 13,000 operating levies since House Bill 20 was adopted in 1976. So those are the four key factors. They gave some statistics by the numbers, which reference some of those key statistics. A plus 46% rise in typical home values since 2020. Obviously, that's pretty unheard of in just 5 years. A 67.5% rise, or a current share of school property taxes now paid by homeowners, which I referenced before, compared to 46% in 1991. I mentioned this, Ohio's eighth Ohio's national rank in property tax burden. This is something that goes along with the TIFs and the CRA I mentioned. $26.6 billion. That is the value of abated property in 2024, which was up from $5.7 billion in 2004, 20 years ago, which places more stress on homeowners. And then again, 400, the number of districts at the 20 mil floor currently, up from 105 in 2012. And last thing is, you may have heard a little bit about this, but there's currently some traction being gained to put language on the ballot in 2026 to repeal property taxes altogether. And obviously that would have just devastating effects for all public services. And so what the Ohio Education Policy Institute is pushing for is reform, not repeal. They support practical changes that strengthen the homestead exemption and tie relief to income, protect seniors and veterans from unmanageable increases, cap growth in 20 mil floor districts while ensuring schools are reimbursed. And I do want to elaborate just a little bit on that. We aren't at the 20 mil floor. I've mentioned that before. And in this report, you've heard me talk about the 20 mil floor. And you guys know this, but for those maybe watching that don't know, when you're at the 20 mil floor and property values go up, your effective millage gets rolled back, okay? But by law, school districts can't fall below the 20 mil floor. So if you're at the 20 mil floor, property values go up and effective millage gets rolled back. For example, if it goes from 20 mils to 18 mils, by law, there's a mechanism that brings it back up to 20 mils. And so that becomes a 2 mil increase that is unvoted upon. It happens. And so that's why it increases taxes. What they are talking about doing is limiting that growth. So if you're at the 20 mil floor and your properties go up 25% and it equates to 2 mils, and you roll back 2 mils, you don't automatically get a 2 mil increase. What they will do is they will parallel that with inflation. So if inflation over the 3-year reevaluation process was 8%, you would get 8% growth, not the full 2 mils. Okay, so there's been legislation out there to completely eliminate that 20 mil floor and not allow school districts to gain anything from that. So, I think it's a somewhat rational approach compared to some of the other things I've heard and seen. And then they want to also give districts flexible tools without undermining stability. There's a lot of mention out there. Matter of fact, 2 bills that were recently introduced over the last 2 weeks that have actually passed through either the House or the Senate at this time. But they give budget commissions the ability to reduce collections based on if they feel like school districts or other taxing authorities are over-collecting for whatever reasons they feel are valid. So that's a little concerning for school districts, as you can imagine. And it's happening currently. It's already happening in I believe, Washington Courthouse School District and some others. I've seen the chatter going through where they're actually trying to do this in some districts already. So that was kind of the crux of the Ohio Education Policy Institute report that came out that I just wanted to share with all of you and make you aware of some of the things that they're talking about. Any questions regarding the OEPI report?
I appreciate the summarization that you've taken 18 pages down to 1.5. And your explanation is great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Begley and members of the board, I do have 2 items for your consideration. Under letter D, other items for board action. Number 1, recommend approval of the MOU between the Board of Education and Fairfield Classroom Teachers Association regarding reemployment of retired teachers. Number 2, recommend approval of the following board policies, letters A through E. That concludes the items that I have for your consideration this evening under letter D, other items for board action.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'll entertain a motion to accept these
I'll make a
recommendations.
motion.
Second.
Mr. Napier, Mr. Clark, any further discussion? Mr. Phillips, call the roll.
Mr. Napier,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Ms. Gundrum,
Yes.
Mrs. Burning Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Begley.
Yes.